All right, good morning. My name is Anna Irwin, and I am here at Autry Technology Center, and we are putting together a series of classes called Professional Skills, and the first one we're going to start with is communication. Okay, so one of the concepts around communication and connecting that's been around for a long time, and it's a strong, valid concept, and it's a really good tool for you to be able to use, is the idea behind extraversion and introversion. So extroverts and introverts come into the world that way. That's part of nature. It's part of the way we are designed. And when we come into the world, we have some defaults that are kind of set for us. Now, the more aware we become of those defaults, the more we can kind of move the needle on those. But pretty much, if I come into the world as an extrovert, I'm going to stay on the extroverted end of the continuum. And if I come into the world as an introvert, I'm going to stay on that end. Now, the thing is I can learn how to behave within those other worlds, but I will always be most comfortable in my natural world. So a lot of times when we think about extroverts and introverts, I'll hear the words used. So when somebody describes an extrovert, they'll say the loud person in the room, the one who won't quit talking. And when people describe an introvert, they talk about the quiet person, the one that it's like pulling teeth to get anything out of them. Now, what you're hearing there is people's descriptions of what they're seeing. And the interesting part is a lot of times those descriptions are being given by the opposite, like it's an extrovert describing an introvert or an introvert describing an extrovert. And think about it as two different languages. One of us is speaking Spanish and one of us is speaking Italian. And we don't speak the same language, so we don't understand each other. So there can be a sense of frustration. But what I'd like to give you is some information that will help you understand why the differences and how they work and how we can help each other show up again and be present fully in any kind of communication that we are having. So I bring a hula hoop along for a reason. I want you to, it's a visual aid for you to see the idea that each of us has a kind of a space around us, a force field around us. And that's extroverts and introverts. Now the difference is the coding is real easy. Think of EX and IN. So extroverts tend to do everything externally, very much outside of themselves. Introverts, on the other hand, are very internal, inside of themselves. And what exactly is it that they're doing? There's actually two things that are going on in both worlds. But we do them differently, so they appear differently when we're interacting with other people. So one of the first things we do is process information, so to speak, or process what is going on around us. Process whatever's being said, whatever's happening, whatever's being done. And when an extrovert does their processing, they do it out loud. You might see them talking out loud. You'll certainly see them engaging others in their filtering process, asking some questions. You might see them giving every single one of their ideas. And by the way, if they give you 10, they haven't picked the one yet. They're still filtering. They do it externally. Now for an introvert, when they're processing, they do it all internally. They're going through their assessments, they're thinking about it, and they're running it through their internal filters. They're not asking for outside input, they're doing it all internally. Thus they appear very quiet. Sometimes people will even think they're not engaging. Trust me, they're engaging from their internal space because they're introverted. Now, why is that important? Because quite often when we're working together on a project or as a team, there'll be somewhat of a clash between these two styles. And so you're going to want to be aware of how each of us shows up. And again, help us show up as our best self. So some tips for an extrovert. Make sure that if you've got 10 or 12 things to say, you can cut that list down to 4 or 5. Say half as much. Introverts need you to engage more, need to give more than one thing or just 2 things. Try and offer 2, 3, maybe even 4 of those ideas that you have. Not necessarily be filtered, but to let folks know that, hey, I've had several ideas, this was just my best idea. Okay? Now, the second thing that we do as introverts and extroverts is we create and or use energy. So the first thing we have to do is create it. And again, my extroverts do that externally. Literally, they gather energy from those around them, from the setting around them, from the things that are happening outside of them. If they're alone, extroverts tend to lose energy. They will literally turn on a radio, turn on a TV. Even they've done some studies that they turn on lights so that they create more energy. The energy for them comes from outside of them. On the other hand, for an introvert, they generate their energy inside. So when they're alone, they gain energy. When they're in a quiet space or more one-on-one, the fewer people, the better, then they're able to generate that energy. Extroverts, the more people, the better. That's more energy source for me. So when I'm thinking about this and how we use energy, so an extrovert tends to be, you'll know they're an extrovert because they're very much outside. They're putting their energy out here because they're reciprocating it, okay? Introverts are definitely getting more tired when they have to be in a group or a large setting. It costs them energy to do that. Why is this important? Because if I'm working with somebody who's let's say I'm an extrovert and I'm working with somebody who's highly introverted, and we're doing a creative process, and we've been in a room with 10 or 12 people for 3 or 4 hours, and that introvert has not had a break to regain energy. Now, the extroverts in the room are gaining energy. The introverts are losing energy. They need a break. They need some time to go to a space where they can regenerate. Why do we do this? We do this so that we help them show up as their best self. Okay? We help them come back to the setting regenerated. And when we're working with introverts and extroverts, do not have the same expectation for the level of engagement. Extroverts will tend to engage more. Introverts engage less. Respect the difference in language and honor that. Help each other show up as their best self. When we're focusing on somebody else and helping them show up as their best self, and they reciprocate the same, we have a way of helping each other process better and generate and spend energy better. Being aware of this equation helps me be a better communicator.